They called my yacht unauthorized and ordered it destroyed. Over a slip I've kept for 15 years. I don't even live in their neighborhood. That boat was the last piece of my late wife, Sarah, our promise to keep sailing together. And Brenda Hutchinson crushed it like it was worthless scrap. The stench of diesel and shattered fiberglass hit me first. Then the rage. 5 years of memories ground into debris while neighbors watched from behind curtains like I might explode. Maybe I should. Here's what this power-hungry Karen didn't bother to check. I don't rent this slip. I own the entire marina. All 89 slips, the docks, even the parking lot her precious BMW's sitting in. What would you do if someone destroyed your home while you were working? Where are you watching from? Because Brenda just made an $80,000 mistake that's about to cost her everything. Let me back up and explain how we got here, because this story's got more layers than Brenda's foundation makeup. I'm Marcus Steinberg, retired Navy engineer turned marine electronics consultant. After 20 years fixing sonar systems on destroyers, I thought civilian life would be peaceful. Then I met my late wife, Sarah, and peaceful became perfect. She had this laugh that could carry across the water on a still morning, the kind that makes you forget the Navy ever happened. In 2008, Sarah and I bought Pelican Bay Marina as an investment. 99 slips, a small office building, and 40 acres of prime waterfront in Clearwater, Florida. Cost us $1.2 million, which was every penny we had, but Sarah called it our floating retirement plan. The gentle creak of dock lines in the morning breeze became our new reveille, and the smell of salt air mixed with Sarah's coffee made every dawn feel like a gift. Here's the thing about owning a marina. Most people assume you're just another boat owner paying slip fees. We liked it that way. No drama, no politics, just us and the water. The texture of weathered teak railings under my palms felt more like home than any house ever had. Sarah passed 3 years ago. Cancer. Quick and cruel. The boat became my sanctuary where I could still hear her voice in those wind chimes she hung in the cockpit. Every morning I'd sit there with coffee, listening to dolphins splash while her chimes played our old song, but apparently keeping a low profile makes you a target for people like Brenda Hutchinson. Brenda moved into the Sunset Palms condos in 2019 and immediately got herself elected HOA president. Picture this. Real estate agent meets power-hungry soccer mom, drives a white BMW with blessed license plates, carries a leather portfolio like she's negotiating nuclear treaties. The sound of her manicured nails clicking on that damn clipboard became the marina's new irritating soundtrack. When the Sunset Palms development went up, Brenda's lawyer buddy filed papers claiming the HOA had emergency management jurisdiction over my marina. Problem was, Brenda knew exactly who owned what. She'd done her homework, seen the county records, knew she was messing with the actual property owner. I could have stopped this day one. One phone call to my attorney, flash the deed, game over. But Sarah always said, "Give people enough rope to hang themselves, honey." Military training taught me patience, and watching Brenda operate taught me she was building her own gallows with every bogus citation. For 2 years, I played the confused boat owner while documenting everything. Every violation notice went into Sarah's old recipe box, alphabetized by date because she would have laughed at my Navy precision. Brenda thought she was slowly strangling some helpless old veteran who didn't understand proper procedures. Her systematic harassment targeted all 8 live aboards in my marina. Monthly compliance checks for hanging laundry or potted plants. Retired teacher Janet Kowalski got fined for bird feeders. Coast Guard veteran Bob Fletcher got cited for excessive shore power usage. Apparently his CPAP machine violated some imaginary regulation. Each violation notice was another fraud count I could use later. Cheap paper with official-sounding language backed by completely bogus authority. Here's what made this war. Brenda had a secret deal with Bayside Development to sell my marina for $2.3 million. She was planning to steal my property and pocket a finder's fee. Her strategy? Eliminate live aboards through harassment, then claim the marina was available for luxury yacht club conversion. While I was in Miami upgrading Coast Guard sonar systems, she held an emergency meeting and voted to destroy my boat as a safety hazard. The demolition crew arrived at dawn with official-looking paperwork. 20 years of memories fed into a wood chipper while Brenda watched from her BMW, probably texting her developer friends that the residential problem was solved. She thought destroying my boat eliminated her ownership problem. What she actually did was commit federal destruction of property while attempting to steal a Marina from a patient Navy engineer who'd been documenting her crimes for 2 solid years. So there I am, standing on the dock where my home used to float, watching pieces of my life drift away like expensive confetti. The acrid smell of hydraulic fluid mixed with shattered fiberglass burns my throat, smells like someone bombed a boat dealership. My neighbor Janet Kowalski comes rushing over from her sailboat, still in her bathrobe and fuzzy slippers. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. They wouldn't let any of us stop them. Said it was official HOA business." Janet's a retired 3rd-grade teacher who's lived on her 35-footer for 12 years. She's got that teacher voice that could stop a classroom riot, but apparently not a demolition crew with fake paperwork. The Marina office manager, Tommy Rodriguez, shuffles over looking like he'd rather explain quantum physics to a goldfish. "Marcus, man, I had to comply. They had official documents, emergency authorization. My hands were tied." He shows me the paperwork. Impressive HOA letterhead, legal-sounding language, complete fabrication. Someone put real effort into this fraud. I play my part perfectly. Shocked victim, confused boat owner, doesn't understand how this terrible mistake could happen. Inside, my military training is cataloging evidence like a crime scene photographer. Every piece of floating debris gets documented with timestamp photos. The sound of empty dock lines slapping against pilings where my boat used to be echoes like a funeral bell. Exactly the dramatic touch Brenda was probably hoping for. But while I'm playing devastated victim, something catches my eye in the Marina office. Tommy's got all the slip contracts posted on a bulletin board, and I notice the newer residents have standard rental agreements. But mixed in with those are a few older contracts that look different. Ownership terminology instead of rental language. That's when I remember something my old Navy legal officer once told me about Marina property rights. Back in the day, many marinas sold slips as real property like condos, but people assume they're just renting space. I start asking casual questions while pretending to look for temporary slip options. Turns out 3 other live aboards have contracts similar to mine, dating back to the original Marina development. They bought their slips as property, but never realized what that meant legally. Brenda's been treating property owners like renters, collecting fees for services she has no authority to provide. This isn't just harassment, it's systematic fraud on a much bigger scale than I thought, and I've been letting her dig the hole deeper for 2 years. Janet offers her sailboat's guest berth. It's not much, but you're welcome to stay until you figure out your next move. I accept graciously, playing the grateful victim while internally calculating how this community support will look to federal investigators later. Nothing builds a civil rights case like documented community sympathy for harassment victims. The demolition company turns out to be Professional Marine Services, Brenda's cousin's outfit from Tampa. They arrived with work orders that looked legitimate enough to fool my neighbors, complete with fake emergency signatures. But now I see the family business angle. This isn't incompetent HOA overreach, it's organized fraud with demolition services provided by relatives. That evening, cramped in Janet's guest bunk that's clearly designed for someone under 5'6", I start my counterattack. Police report for property destruction, building the paper trail. Insurance company call, though I know HOA demolition isn't covered. Maritime attorney Sarah Reagan gets a call too, recommended by my old Jacksonville Navy buddy who dealt with similar property disputes. The funny part? I'm sleeping in a bunk surrounded by Janet's ceramic lighthouse collection while technically being the landlord of the woman who's harassing both of us. Janet apologizes for the tight quarters, and I tell her not to worry. I've slept in destroyer engine rooms that were louder and smaller. But those didn't have hand-sewn nautical quilts and motivational anchor quotes everywhere. By week's end, I organize an informal coffee clatch with the other live aboards. We start comparing violation notices and harassment patterns over Janet's surprisingly good galley coffee. Bob Fletcher, the retired Coast Guard guy, mentions something interesting about his HOA statements. Line items for marina management services that don't match any actual services received. That's when the pieces click. Brenda isn't just harassing us for fun. She's billing the HOA for managing property she doesn't own, creating a shell company to embezzle fees while systematically eliminating the residents who might question her authority. Every day she lets me document her harassment is another day she's building my federal case. The sound of my footsteps echoing differently on the dock, without my boat's familiar creak, becomes my daily reminder that this is personal now. But it's also strategic. Brenda eliminated her biggest problem, or so she thinks. What she actually did was unite her victims under the leadership of a patient Navy engineer with legal resources and 2 years' worth of documented evidence. Week 2 of living in Janet's floating dollhouse, and Brenda decides to escalate. I wake up to the sound of certified mail delivery, that special engine rumble that means someone's about to ruin your morning with legal papers. Sure enough, fancy attorney letterhead demanding I stop trespassing on Janet's boat and threatening legal action against any resident who harbors an unauthorized person. The scent of expensive legal paper mixed with Janet's morning coffee creates this surreal breakfast meets lawsuit atmosphere. Janet reads it while stirring her oatmeal, her teacher instincts kicking in. This is playground bullying with a law degree. Isolate the target from support, classic intimidation. She's right, but there's more strategy here. Brenda's trying to force me off the property before I can build any kind of case. The new guest policy limits overnight visitors to 3 days maximum. Amazing timing, considering I've been here a week. Violation notices start flying like confetti at a legal parade. Janet gets slammed with $500 per day fines for harboring an unauthorized resident. Other neighbors who offered help get warning letters about interfering with HOA enforcement. But while Brenda's playing legal hardball, I'm spending quality time at the county courthouse. The records clerk probably thinks I'm writing a dissertation on municipal zoning, but those 1995 Marina development plans make fascinating reading. Turns out the Marina was designated mixed-use residential commercial, which sounds boring until you realize it means the HOA's authority claims are completely bogus. I drop $500 on maritime attorney Sarah Reagan, and she breaks down something I'd been wondering about. Back in my Navy days, I'd heard about this thing called adverse possession. Live somewhere long enough, act like you own it, sometimes you can establish legal rights. But Sarah explains how it works when you already own the property and someone else is trying to steal it through fraudulent paperwork. She pulls out case files like she's dealing cards. Long-term Marina residents often have stronger legal standing than new HOA rules, but when someone files false documents to override legitimate ownership, that's federal conspiracy. That's when I realize Brenda hasn't just been annoying me. She's been committing federal crimes on my own dock for 2 solid years. Time for my first official boat owners' coffee meeting. The picnic table's weathered wood feels familiar under my hands as I spread out violation notices like evidence in a murder trial. Janet brings her legendary cinnamon rolls. The smell could probably stop international conflicts. And Bob Fletcher shows up with a stack of HOA financial statements that's thicker than a Navy operations manual. That's when Bob drops the bombshell that changes everything. His condo association shares a bookkeeper with Sunset Palms HOA, and this woman mentioned unusual marina management expenses that don't appear in any public reports. Bob's got that Coast Guard eye for detail, and he starts connecting dots I hadn't even seen. Look at this line item, he says, tapping his statement. Marina Oversight Services, $380 monthly. What oversight? I haven't seen any HOA crews maintaining anything out here. Everyone starts checking their statements, same charges, same vague descriptions, 0 actual services. The combination of salt air and Bob's growing outrage creates this perfect storm of righteous indignation as we realize we're looking at systematic billing fraud. Brenda's not just power tripping, she's charging the HOA for managing property she has no legal authority over. Then Bob mentions the company name, Sunset Marine Consulting. Quick phone search reveals the business registration address as Brenda's home address. She's created a shell company to embezzle HOA funds while harassing the residents of my marina. This isn't incompetent HOA overreach. It's organized financial fraud with harassment as cover. I moved to a mainland motel to protect Janet from the fines, but that 45-minute drive becomes my strategy time. Highway noise replacing water sounds, hotel air freshener instead of natural salt air, plastic key cards where boat keys used to be. Every sensory reminder of displacement adds to my motivation. Brenda's confidence peaks as she starts bringing condo buyers around, showing off premium yacht parking they'll enjoy. I watch from public beach access while she markets my slips as amenities, promising prospects. The residential complications will be resolved by closing. Every word becomes evidence for conspiracy to commit grand theft. She's selling access to my property while eliminating residents who might object. The click of her heels on my dock planks sounds like a countdown timer to her own arrest. Hotel bills hit $4,000 by month's end, but I've documented a criminal enterprise spanning fraud, theft conspiracy, and civil rights violations. Brenda thinks expensive harassment will break my resolve, She's actually funding the federal case that's going to destroy her. Month 3, and Brenda goes full dictator mode. I pull up to the Marina gate expecting my usual access code to work, but the keypad just blinks red like a disapproving robot. New security system, and surprise, my code's been deleted along with Janet's, Bob's, and every other problem resident. The metallic click of that new electronic lock sounds like a prison door, which is probably the effect she was going for. Posted right below the keypad, security upgrade, authorized personnel only. Authorized by who? The woman trying to steal my Marina, apparently. But here's where Brenda's tactical genius backfires spectacularly. She's locked the property owner out of his own Marina while installing security cameras aimed directly at the slips where her problem residents dock. I'm watching from the public beach access as she directs camera placement, pointing specifically at Janet's sailboat like she's planning a military operation against a retired teacher. Tommy from the Marina office looks like he's about to have a breakdown when he explains the new policy. Marcus, I'm sorry, man. Orders from above. Only residents in good standing get access. The poor guy's caught between his actual boss, me, and the lunatic with fake authority making his life miserable. His hands actually shake when he shows me Brenda's directive, probably because he knows this is completely insane. From my beach surveillance post, I document everything with sniper-level patience. Brenda's bringing buyer groups every Tuesday and Thursday now, accelerating her timeline like she's running out of time to complete this theft. Her sales pitch never changes. Premium yacht parking, no residential complications, current issues will be permanently resolved by closing. That's when I contact Jennifer Walsh at the Bay City Tribune. This reporter has that shark-sensing blood instinct for corruption stories, and she starts digging into Brenda's background like she's excavating a crime scene. Within 2 weeks, Jennifer uncovers the beautiful truth. Brenda's real estate license was suspended in 2018 for misappropriation of client funds. Apparently, financial creativity is Brenda's specialty, not just a recent hobby. Even better, showing Marina slips to potential buyers without a valid license makes this unlicensed real estate activity on top of the embezzlement. The woman's building her own prosecution case one crime at a time. Jennifer's investigation also reveals the scope of Brenda's scheme. She's been marketing my Marina as luxury yacht club conversion with a personal finder's fee of $200,000 from Bayside Development. That's serious money for selling property you don't own while harassing the residents who might complain about it. I remember something from my Navy legal training about quiet title actions, court procedures for establishing clear property ownership when multiple parties claim rights to the same land. Sometimes you have to spend money in court to prove what you already own, but when someone's systematically filing false documents to override legitimate ownership, those court costs become part of your damages claim later. The personal costs keep mounting like interest on a loan shark's debt. Janet's facing $4,500 in fines, 3 more boats have fled rather than fight, and my hotel bills are approaching the cost of a small car. But each day of harassment adds federal civil rights violations to Brenda's growing legal problems. The community meetings move to Denny's since we're locked out of our own Marina. The smell of coffee and syrup mixing with planning rebellion creates this surreal breakfast revolution atmosphere. We're coordinating legal strategy over Grand Slam platters while Brenda thinks she's eliminated organized resistance. Brenda's confidence peaks as she starts personal attacks on my character. Apparently my military service indicates aggressive tendencies, and my divorce was obviously caused by anger management issues. Every defamatory statement gets documented for the civil lawsuit that'll follow the criminal prosecution. Bob Fletcher discovers something fascinating in the HOA's insurance policy. They're covered for good faith errors in property management, but explicitly excluded for intentional criminal acts by board members. If we can prove Brenda knew she was committing fraud, which we absolutely can, the HOA's insurance won't cover her legal defense or damage payments. By month's end, the scoreboard looks grim. Hotel costs hit $7,000, Janet's considering bankruptcy, and half the live aboard community has scattered like refugees. Brenda's systematic destruction campaign is nearly complete. But she's also created the most thorough federal fraud case I've ever seen. Every harassment incident, every false billing statement, every lie to potential buyers, all documented, witnessed, and ready for the prosecutor who's about to turn her little kingdom into a federal crime scene. The beautiful thing about strategic patience is how it masquerades as helplessness until it becomes overwhelming legal force. 3 months of playing victim, and the evidence is finally complete. I'm crammed in Bob Fletcher's boat cabin. Smells like coffee grounds and righteous indignation, watching him spread forensic accounting sheets across his tiny galley table like he's planning D-Day. Marcus, Bob says, adjusting his reading glasses. She didn't steal 47,000. Try 73 grand over 3 years. His Coast Guard precision shows in every highlighted cell. Sunset Marine Consulting has been billing the HOA $380 monthly for managing your property. That's federal mail fraud, documented monthly for 3 straight years. The beautiful part? Double billing everything. Brenda charges the HOA for Marina oversight through her shell company while the actual management company gets paid for real services. She's essentially charging her neighbors for the privilege of being harassed on my property. Criminal genius meets stunning arrogance. But Jennifer Walsh's investigation reveals the conspiracy's true scope. She slides a manila folder across Bob's table. The crinkle of paper mixing with the boat's gentle rocking creates this perfect Revelations soundtrack. County records show Brenda filed completely false jurisdictional claims. She claimed emergency management authority over your marina through connections in the clerk's office who helped bury your ownership documents. That's when I remember something from my Navy legal training about document fraud in federal cases. When someone systematically files false paperwork to steal property, every document becomes a separate conspiracy count. Brenda hasn't just been harassing me, she's been committing federal felonies every time she filed fake authority claims. Sarah Reagan's legal analysis ties everything together with military precision. The 1995 Marina deed includes perpetual residential moorage rights, permanent property rights that no HOA expansion can override. Every violation notice Brenda issued violated federal civil rights law because she knew she had no legitimate authority. Frank Morrison adds his surveillance evidence to our growing prosecution file. The retired detective's been documenting Brenda's meetings with development company reps, photographing cash exchanges with county officials, recording conversations about permanently solving the ownership problem. His surveillance photos smell like salt air and patient justice. She's been coaching Bayside Development on claiming adverse possession if ownership challenges fail, Frank explains. Complete legal garbage, but it shows premeditated intent to steal the marina through fraudulent authority. The bigger picture crystallizes like a crime scene photograph developing. Bayside's $2.3 million purchase agreement requires the marina be residential-free with clear HOA ownership. Brenda's systematic elimination of live aboards wasn't just power tripping, it was contract fulfillment. Every boat she drove away increased the sale value and her $200K finder's fee. Jennifer's media investigation provides the discrimination evidence that turns this into federal civil rights prosecution. She's been telling buyers the conversion eliminates undesirable transient populations while creating premium yacht parking. That's textbook housing discrimination based on lifestyle and economic status. I lean back in Bob's cramped cabin, watching evidence folders spread across surfaces like pieces of a federal prosecutor's puzzle. The sound of water lapping against the hull mixes with the rustle of documents that will destroy Brenda's criminal enterprise. Every harassment day I endured added federal charges to her case. Every fake violation notice became mail fraud evidence. Every dollar she embezzled increased restitution requirements. Every discriminatory statement created civil rights violations. The strategy wasn't just about patience. It was about letting her commit every possible federal crime while building an unassailable prosecution case. Brenda thought she was slowly crushing a helpless veteran who didn't understand property law. She was actually providing documented evidence to someone building the most comprehensive HOA fraud case in Florida history. Timeline: 6 weeks until the quarterly meeting where she'll try to finalize the sale. Federal agents will be waiting, media will be watching, community will witness justice. This isn't just about stopping one criminal HOA president anymore. It's about establishing precedent for federal prosecution of systematic HOA fraud nationwide. Every future victim will benefit from the case we've built. Brenda wanted to steal a marina. She picked the owner. Time to stop playing defense and coordinate the counterattack. I gather my core team in Janet's sailboat cabin, the one place Brenda's cameras can't spy on us. The smell of strong galley coffee mixing with salt air through the porthole creates this perfect conspirators planning justice atmosphere. All right, people, I tell them, spreading evidence folders across Janet's tiny table like battle plans. Time for full disclosure. I don't just live at this marina, I own the whole damn thing. Every slip, every dock, every parking space where Brenda's BMW sits. Have since 2008. The silence that follows could stop a hurricane. Janet's coffee cup freezes halfway to her lips, steam curling in the cabin air. Bob's forensic accounting brain starts recalculating 3 years of harassment with new context. Frank's detective instincts kick in as the scope becomes clear. So every violation notice she issued, Janet begins, her teacher voice trailing off. Federal crimes committed on my property, I confirm. Every fine, every lockout, every harassment incident, she's been systematically violating civil rights while embezzling HOA funds to manage property she has zero authority over. Jennifer Walsh's eyes light up with that hungry journalist gleam. This isn't local HOA overreach, it's federal conspiracy to steal a $2.3 million Marina. Her pen scratches notes on a pad that smells like newsroom ink and upcoming Pulitzer consideration. Sarah Reagan coordinates our legal blitzkrieg with precision that would make my old Navy commanders proud. Simultaneous filings across multiple jurisdictions, federal civil rights violations, criminal conspiracy charges, state embezzlement prosecution, emergency injunction to halt the fraudulent sale. Each front attacks different pieces of Brenda's criminal empire. The key is timing everything for maximum legal impact, Sarah explains, her legal documents rustling like artillery preparation. We let her commit the final crime, attempting to sell stolen property, before federal agents serve warrants for the entire conspiracy. Bob Fletcher expands his financial investigation into full criminal enterprise analysis. The sound of his calculator clicking becomes our strategic soundtrack as he uncovers the embezzlement's true scope. It's not just Marina management fees. She's billing for security services from her brother-in-law, maintenance oversight for work never performed, legal consultation from attorneys who never visited. Here's something I learned during Navy procurement investigations. Federal prosecutors love cases with clear paper trails and electronic evidence. Every fake invoice, every fraudulent electronic transfer, every documented lie becomes a separate federal charge. Bob's analysis gives us enough evidence for decades of prison time. Total documented fraud, $127,000 over 3 years, Bob announces. Every electronic transaction preserved, every fake invoice documented. Federal prosecutors dream about cases this clean. Frank Morrison coordinates surveillance and law enforcement positioning for our final operation. His police contacts brief federal agents on Brenda's evidence tampering and intimidation patterns. The strategy: document her attempting to complete the property theft before serving federal arrest warrants. Jennifer's media coordination ensures public accountability and prevents backroom plea deals. Regional TV gets exclusive coverage rights. National outlets are briefed for follow-up stories. Social media campaign prepared for immediate post-arrest exposure. Public exposure prevents corrupt officials from protecting her, Jennifer explains, organizing press credentials like ammunition. Federal cases sometimes disappear in plea negotiations, but not when cameras are rolling. Community organizing becomes military precise. We identify every harassment victim, document their experiences, coordinate their quarterly meeting attendance. Legal observers positioned throughout the venue. Court reporter hired as independent witness. The technical preparation reads like special operations planning. Multiple recording systems tested throughout the community center. Backup equipment prevents electronic interference. Sheriff's deputy arranged for security, though he doesn't know about pending federal warrants. My personal preparation focuses on the presentation that publicly exposes 3 years of documented federal crimes. Practice evidence revelation for maximum impact. Coordinate tag team approaches with allies. Prepare contingencies if she attempts shutting down proceedings. The psychological warfare strategy centers on maintaining defensive appearances while positioning overwhelming force. Let her believe victory is imminent. Rope-a-dope tactics. Encourage complete commitment to the crime before revealing the federal prosecution that destroys everything. The beautiful justice? Every harassment day she inflicted added federal charges. Every fake violation became mail fraud evidence. Every discriminatory statement created civil rights violations. Every embezzled dollar increased restitution requirements. 6 weeks until Operation Marina Justice launches. Primary objective: public arrest during attempted property theft. Secondary objective: precedent-setting federal prosecution. Personal objective: honor Sarah's memory through strategic patience that protects community. The texture of legal documents under my hands feels like justice finally within reach. Brenda thinks she's weeks from collecting a $200K finder's fee for stealing my Marina. She's actually weeks from federal prison and a masterclass in why you don't commit crimes against patient Navy engineers. 5 weeks before this quarterly meeting, and Brenda crosses the line into felony territory. I'm driving back from a Miami consulting job when my phone explodes with the kind of news that makes you want to punch something expensive. She's filed a police report claiming I cornered her at the Marina office and threatened to make her disappear like my boat did. According to her Oscar-worthy performance, I was visibly agitated and made threatening gestures, while saying she'd regret messing with a Navy veteran. 2 board members provided witness statements backing up every word of this complete fiction. The smell of my rental car's stale air freshener mixing with road rage creates this perfect fury cocktail as I read the emergency no trespass order. Brenda's trying to physically bar me from attending the quarterly meeting where she plans to steal my Marina. The woman's got brass, I'll give her that. Deputy Martinez delivers the paperwork to my hotel looking like he'd rather be investigating actual crimes. Marcus, I've got to serve this, but the timing feels suspicious. 3 years of no incidents, then suddenly threats right before an important meeting? He's right. Even local cops can smell fabricated evidence. Sarah Reagan files an emergency motion to lift the trespass order faster than Brenda can say perjury. Our court hearing gets scheduled for the day before the quarterly meeting. Perfect timing to publicly expose her false police report while establishing my right to attend meetings about my own property. But then Brenda attempts something so brazen it's almost admirable. The Marina office gets burglarized overnight, with thieves showing remarkable discrimination. They only target file cabinets containing boat contracts and ownership documents. Nothing else touched, no cash stolen, just papers that might support my legal claims. Here's what I learned from Navy security investigations. Real burglars steal valuable items they can fence quickly. Fake burglars target specific documents while leaving expensive electronics untouched. Professional criminals don't ignore cash registers to steal filing cabinets. Frank Morrison's surveillance captures the money shot. Brenda's BMW parked behind the Marina office at 2 a.m., 20 minutes before the burglary gets reported. His infrared photography shows her loading boxes into her trunk like she's moving evidence instead of stolen goods. The security cameras that mysteriously malfunctioned during the break-in work perfectly before and after. Technical analysis of the system shows someone manually disabled recording during a specific time window, someone with administrative access to the security controls. Evidence tampering adds federal obstruction charges to Brenda's expanding legal problems, but it also reveals timeline desperation. She knows federal investigators are closing in, so she's destroying anything that supports my ownership claims before they can be presented in court. Jennifer Walsh's preliminary expose publishes with perfect timing. HOA, President's Criminal Empire, Fraud, Harassment, and Evidence Destruction. The article details 3 years of systematic financial fraud and harassment. The smell of fresh newsprint mixed with justice feels better than morning coffee. Regional TV picks up the story, and suddenly Brenda's hiring damage control communications to manage her reputation challenges. Her crisis PR firm probably doesn't realize they're documenting additional defamatory statements for our civil lawsuit. The media attention creates unexpected consequences for her development deal. Bayside Development starts asking uncomfortable questions about ownership complications and federal investigations. No legitimate company wants to buy property that's the subject of criminal fraud prosecution. Federal Postal Inspector Monica Rodriguez formalizes her involvement after reviewing 3 years of fake violation notices sent through the mail. Mail fraud carries serious federal prison time, especially when it's part of systematic civil rights violations against veterans. That's when Brenda's character assassination campaign reaches defamation levels. She tells Channel 8 News that I'm a disgruntled veteran with anger issues trying to extort money from honest community volunteers. She suggests my divorce was caused by military trauma that makes me unsuitable for civilian community living. Every statement gets recorded and documented for the civil lawsuit following criminal prosecution. Her crisis PR strategy is actually building additional legal cases with every interview. The community pressure tactics become desperate performance art. Emergency board meeting to hire security protection from her brother-in-law's company at $3,000 monthly. The contract specifically mentions protecting board members from harassment by problem residents, more nepotism and fraud for the federal charges. Frank's surveillance captures Brenda coaching board members on quarterly meeting testimony. Deny knowledge of financial issues, support the sale, claim Marcus was always problematic, her voice crystal clear on his recording equipment. Conspiracy to commit perjury and obstruct justice added to her federal case. By week's end, Brenda's desperation creates the most comprehensive federal fraud case in Florida HOA history. False police reports, evidence destruction, mail fraud, civil rights violations, embezzlement, conspiracy, enough federal charges for decades of prison time. 4 weeks until the quarterly meeting showdown. She thinks she's eliminating obstacles to complete her property theft. She's actually providing federal prosecutors with a textbook case in systematic criminal enterprise that will become a national precedent for HOA fraud prosecution. The patient Navy engineer's strategic warfare reaches its devastating finale. 3 weeks before the quarterly meeting, and Brenda's playing her final cards with the desperation of someone watching their house burn while holding gasoline. She calls an emergency board vote to accelerate the Marina sale by 2 weeks, claiming urgent financial pressures require immediate action. The real pressure? My media exposure is making Bayside development nervous about buying stolen property. Nothing ruins a real estate deal faster than federal investigators asking uncomfortable questions about ownership documentation. I'm watching from my beach surveillance post, binoculars, telephoto camera, evidence notebook, when Brenda brings another parade of potential buyers through my marina. The click of her heels on my dock planks sounds like a countdown timer to her own arrest. She's promising immediate occupancy and guaranteed clean title for property she can't legally sell. That's when Frank Morrison captures the money shot that transforms this from fraud to federal corruption. His surveillance equipment documents Brenda meeting County Zoning Commissioner Bill Hartley behind the Marina office, sliding an envelope across his car hood like they're dealing drugs instead of zoning variances. The infrared photography clearly shows $5,000 in cash changing hands for expedited approval of Marina conversion to luxury yacht club. Frank's audio equipment picks up her exact words. Just rubber stamp the variance and the ownership complications disappear permanently. Here's something I learned during Navy procurement investigations. When you're already facing federal fraud charges, bribing public officials shows the kind of criminal judgment that keeps prosecutors awake at night with excitement. Brenda just added federal bribery and public corruption to a case that already guarantees decades in prison. But her desperation creates this beautiful cascade of additional crimes. She's so focused on completing the sale before federal charges hit that she's committing new felonies daily. Every bribe, every false statement to buyers, every coaching session with board members adds charges faster than her lawyer can count them. Jennifer Walsh's investigation expands into the county corruption angle with the enthusiasm of a reporter who smells Pulitzer material. This isn't just HOA fraud anymore, she tells me over diner coffee that tastes like justice and newsprint. It's systematic public corruption involving multiple officials, development companies, and interstate criminal enterprise. The RICO implications make federal prosecutors practically salivate. When you can prove ongoing criminal enterprise crossing state lines with multiple federal crimes, you're talking about prosecution frameworks that destroy entire criminal organizations. Community meetings move to increasingly covert locations as Brenda's hired security follows anyone she considers disloyal. We're planning legal strategy in McDonald's parking lots and diner back booths like resistance fighters organizing against occupying forces. The smell of fast food and rebellion creates this surreal underground headquarters atmosphere. But her surveillance tactics backfire spectacularly when Frank's counter-surveillance documents her security team conducting illegal wiretapping of residents' phones and boats. More federal crimes, communications privacy violations, illegal surveillance of federal witnesses, and intimidation of crime victims. The evidence compilation now reads like a federal prosecutor's wet dream. Systematic fraud, civil rights violations, mail fraud, wire fraud, bribery, public corruption, conspiracy, obstruction, evidence tampering, perjury, and attempted theft of $2.3 million in real estate. Each crime category carries years of federal prison time. Sarah Reagan coordinates final legal preparation with precision that would impress my old Navy commanders. Federal agents from multiple agencies positioned for arrest warrant service during the quarterly meeting. FBI, Postal Inspector, IRS Criminal Division, DOJ Civil Rights Division. This is federal task force operations against organized crime. Bayside Development starts demanding legal guarantees about ownership complications and federal investigation outcomes. And Brenda promises everything will be permanently resolved by the meeting, not realizing every conversation Frank records becomes additional conspiracy evidence. Then comes her final desperate gambit, attempting to bribe county commissioners into declaring eminent domain over the marina for public safety reasons. The recorded conversation where she offers Commissioner Martinez $20,000 to support emergency eminent domain becomes the corruption case's smoking gun. The most beautiful part? She's coaching development representatives on claiming adverse possession if ownership challenges fail. Every conversation shows premeditated conspiracy to steal property through fraudulent legal theories that wouldn't fool a first-year law student. Personal costs peak as harassment intensifies. Hotel bills exceed 15 grand, Janet's bankruptcy looms, and the last 2 live aboards flee rather than continue fighting. Community destruction nearly complete. But each harassment day adds civil rights violations. Each embezzled dollar increases restitution, and each desperate crime builds the federal prosecution that will end her criminal enterprise forever. 3 weeks until the quarterly meeting showdown, Brenda thinks she's racing to complete her property theft and collect a $200K finder's fee. She's actually racing toward federal prison and becoming a national example of why you don't commit systematic crimes against patient Navy engineers with federal law enforcement connections. Strategic patience. It masquerades as weakness until it becomes overwhelming prosecution force. Friday morning, emergency court hearing. Judge Patricia Williams reviews my ownership documentation and Brenda's false police report with the expression of someone who's seen enough bullshit to recognize it from space. The courtroom smells like old wood and impending justice. Sarah Reagan presents our evidence package with surgical precision. 3 years of harassment documentation, ownership records dating to 2008, and Frank Morrison's surveillance showing Brenda destroying evidence at 2 a.m. Your Honor, this false report was filed to prevent the property owner from attending a meeting about his own marina. Judge Williams calls Brenda's complaint frivolous, malicious, and potentially criminal perjury. The trespass order gets lifted with a stern warning about filing false reports. I'm legally cleared to attend tonight's quarterly meeting on my own property. Perfect timing for what's about to unfold. Friday afternoon brings federal coordination like something from a crime movie. State Attorney's Office files charges for embezzlement, fraud, and evidence tampering. Federal Postal Inspector Monica Rodriguez adds mail fraud and conspiracy counts. Arrest warrant sealed until after the quarterly meeting. Let her complete the attempted theft before federal agents end her criminal enterprise. Friday evening, Clearwater Community Center. The parking lot's packed like a Super Bowl tailgate party, except instead of team jerseys, everyone's wearing expressions ranging from curiosity to righteous outrage. TV news trucks line the street, their satellite dishes pointed skyward like mechanical prayers for justice. Inside, the room's electric with tension you could cut with a chainsaw. 180 residents, media representatives, legal observers, and federal agents in street clothes positioned throughout the crowd. The sound of metal folding chairs scraping linoleum creates this perfect pre-battle symphony. Sheriff's Deputy Rodriguez stands at attention near the exit, unaware that federal agents with arrest warrants are scattered throughout the audience. Court reporter Margaret Reagan sets up her equipment in the corner, ready to document every word for federal prosecution. Brenda takes the podium with the confidence of someone who thinks she's about to complete the perfect crime. Her leather portfolio gleams under fluorescent lights as she spreads Marina sale documents across the table like treasure maps. The woman actually smiles as she begins her presentation. Tonight, we finalize the most beneficial transaction in our community's history, she announces, her voice carrying that fake authority she's perfected over 3 years. Bayside Development's $2.3 million offer for Pelican Bay Marina will fund community improvements while eliminating ongoing residential complications. She projects financial benefits on the wall screen: $800K for infrastructure, $500K for amenities, $400K reserve fund. The development company representative nods approvingly as Brenda describes how problematic live aboard situations have been permanently resolved through proper legal channels. The audience murmurs appreciatively until I request floor time through parliamentary procedure. Brenda's smile falters as she remembers the court order requiring her to recognize my speaking rights. Deputy Rodriguez steps forward as a gentle reminder that federal judges expect their orders followed. I'd like to address some factual errors in tonight's presentation, I begin, walking to the podium carrying my thick evidence folder. The room falls silent except for the hum of TV cameras recording every moment. First, let's clarify exactly who owns the marina Brenda's trying to sell. I project my 2008 deed documents on the wall screen, and the audience erupts in gasps as ownership evidence fills the display. Brenda, you've been harassing residents and embezzling funds on property that belongs to me. The color drains from her face faster than water through a broken hull. Her confident posture collapses as she realizes 3 years of criminal enterprise just got exposed to 180 witnesses and federal investigators. Bob Fletcher takes the microphone for the financial revelation. Let's examine where your HOA fees actually went. His forensic accounting slides show $127,000 in fraudulent payments to Brenda's shell company, Sunset Marine Consulting, registered to our HOA president's home address. The audience explosion of outraged voices sounds like a sports stadium when the home team scores. Residents who've been paying fraudulent fees for 3 years suddenly understand they've been funding their own harassment. Jennifer Walsh stands to present her investigation findings. Federal Postal Inspector, please identify yourself. Monica Rodriguez rises from the audience, badge visible, as Jennifer continues. This investigation has uncovered systematic federal crimes, including mail fraud, civil rights violations, and conspiracy to commit grand theft. That's when federal agents throughout the room begin moving toward the podium. The atmosphere shifts from community meeting to federal crime scene as Brenda realizes she's surrounded by law enforcement. "This is harassment," she screams, attempting to end the meeting and flee. "I'm calling security!" But her brother-in-law's security team is conspicuously absent, probably because Frank Morrison's surveillance evidence showed them participating in illegal activities. Deputy Rodriguez blocks her exit path as Postal Inspector Rodriguez approaches with arrest warrant in hand. "Brenda Hutchinson, you're under arrest for federal mail fraud, conspiracy, and civil rights violations." The mic drop moment arrives as federal agents apply handcuffs while TV cameras roll. "I've been letting you commit federal crimes on my own property for 3 years, Brenda. You wanted to steal a marina? Too bad you picked the owner's boat to demolish first." The community erupts in sustained applause as 3 years of systematic harassment ends with federal arrest. Development company representatives quietly exit as their stolen property deal disintegrates. Marina sale declared null and void due to fraudulent authorization. Justice tastes like salt air and vindication. 6 months later, I'm sitting on the deck of my new 45-footer Sarah's Justice, watching sunrise paint Pelican Bay Marina in golden light. The same marina I've owned for 15 years, where I can finally live in peace without harassment, violation notices, or the constant clicking of Brenda's clipboard against my sanity. The legal resolution was swift once federal prosecutors got their hands on 3 years of documented evidence. Brenda pleaded guilty to avoid trial, receiving 5 years federal prison and $200,000 in restitution payments. Turns out federal judges take systematic harassment of veterans personally, especially when it involves embezzling community funds to manage stolen property. Her crisis PR firm dropped her faster than a hot rivet when the full scope of federal charges became public. The county officials she bribed are facing their own federal corruption trials. Bayside Development canceled all Florida operations after their due diligence team discovered they'd been negotiating to buy stolen property from a federal criminal enterprise. But here's what matters most. We transformed this nightmare into something beautiful that honors both justice and community. The Marina Community Foundation launched with recovered fraud money and insurance settlement funds. We're funding scholarships for local students studying marine technology, giving kids real skills for good-paying careers in the boating industry. 15 students this year, including 5 from single-parent families who never thought college was possible. Janet Kowalski became our first elected Marina president after we converted to resident-owned cooperative management. Every slip holder has voting rights, financial records are completely transparent, and harassment is grounds for immediate board removal. Democracy replaced dictatorship, and property values actually increased because people want to live in communities that protect residents instead of targeting them. Bob Fletcher handles our finances with the transparency Brenda never provided, publishing monthly reports that show exactly where every dollar goes. Frank Morrison heads our security committee, but his focus is helping residents solve problems instead of creating them through systematic harassment campaigns. The environmental benefits surprised everyone. We installed solar panels on community buildings using fraud recovery funds, started water quality monitoring with the University of South Florida Marine Science Program, and established a manatee protection zone in the marina's shallow areas. The morning sounds of dolphins playing in our cove replaced the irritating soundtrack of Brenda's clipboard as our daily audio backdrop. Jennifer Walsh won a State Investigative Journalism Award for her HOA corruption series, The Hidden Cost of Community. Her reporting led to new Florida laws requiring HOA financial transparency and protecting residents from systematic discrimination. We grab dinner occasionally, Turns out fighting corruption together builds interesting friendships that survive beyond the battlefield. Most importantly, we created something Sarah would have loved. The Sunset Sailing Club teaches underprivileged kids seamanship and water safety skills every weekend. Watching 12-year-olds learn to sail where my boat once floated in destroyed pieces provides healing I never expected. Their laughter carries across the same water where Brenda once conducted her harassment campaigns. I kept one piece of debris from my destroyed boat, a section of teak railing Sarah used to grip during rough weather. It's mounted in my new galley as a reminder that sometimes you have to let people reveal their true character before you can deal with them effectively. Strategic patience isn't weakness disguised as strength. It's strength that looks like weakness until it becomes overwhelming justice. The Marina community is stronger now than before Brenda's criminal enterprise tried destroying it. Monthly potluck dinners on the dock, boat dogs, social club for pet owners, and security that protects instead of persecutes residents. The texture of new dock planks under my feet reminds me that sometimes destruction leads to better rebuilding when good people work together. 3 practical takeaways for anyone facing HOA abuse. First, document everything obsessively. Every notice, every interaction, every financial irregularity becomes evidence. Second, verify your property rights through county records. You might have stronger legal standing than you realize. Third, contact your state attorney general's HOA fraud unit. They're specifically equipped to handle systematic corruption that local authorities might miss. The best part? Word spread through the national boating community about our successful resistance to criminal HOA abuse. I now consult for Marina residents and HOA victims nationwide, helping them build federal cases against systematic harassment. Turns out Brenda wasn't unique. There's an entire network of criminal HOA board members running similar scams across the country. Last week brought a call from a desperate boat owner in California whose HOA destroyed his sailboat for unauthorized modifications. His story sounds exactly like mine, except now I know how to turn systematic harassment into federal prosecution that protects entire communities. Your turn to take action. Drop your HOA horror story in the comments below. You might discover other victims of the same systematic abuse patterns. Share this story with anyone dealing with HOA overreach because knowledge about federal prosecution options can transform victims into victors. And if you believe no HOA should have the power to destroy people's homes while embezzling community funds, hit that subscribe button hard. The next story involves an HOA president who thought she could steal a disabled veteran's benefits while foreclosing on his home. She learned the hard way that federal prosecutors really don't appreciate benefit fraud combined with disability discrimination. Justice isn't just about winning your own fight, it's about making sure the next person doesn't have to go through what you did. Together, we can make systematic HOA abuse a thing of the past.
Thanks for hanging out with us on HOA Stories, where the HOA Karens meet their match. If this story had you cheering or cringing, go ahead and like the video, drop a comment with your reaction, and hit subscribe so you're ready for the next wild HOA tale.